BNG. Just want to speak to BNG because this is good.
Yeah, you're all fine for time. BNG is unaltered. It's as it was. This is not within policy within the NPPF. But if there are changes to come, it will come through MHCLG. So again, the BNG element that's inclusive is law. It's not policy. So they're going to have to go through Parliament with that to effectively loosen off BNG if that's what they are inclined to do on your smaller sites, i.e., your sites that are smaller developments up to zero point 0.2 hectare, which is good news. It is good news, but again, until it's here, I can't really bank on it. But if that comes through, that could. I mean, I know for a fact it would save a headache on probably 80% of our sites that we have for clients. So I'm all for that, to be fair.
It's about half an acre.
Yeah, and then there's the additional target exemption for brownfield residential developments on sites up to 2.5 hectares as well.
Yeah, again, that should be a given, to be fair. But are there enough brownfield sites in the UK to get excited about on that level? We'll have to wait and see. There needs to be more allocation of brownfield sites through local plans for us to see that.
Yeah. And when we so I think that's it with the MPPF. Hopefully useful for viewers who've tuned into that. There's a lot more you can read. Just Google it and you'll find all kinds of bits that various planning consultants and the government have released with literature going through everything to do with the MPPF change. But those are the main bits. Jack, whilst we got you, I think it's just interesting because me and you had a chat about the difficulties of just running a planning consultant type business. This is a business and property podcast. Can you just speak to the kind of scaling constraints? Because we had a chat about it in terms of trying to scale a planning consultant's practice, and just the difficulties that can come with that. Because obviously there's huge practices out there, aren't there? And then you generally get a lot of
Massive, yeah.
smaller practices. What are the kind of bottleneck constraints, just to tease the viewer's appetite a bit?
I think the main thing for me is there's a massive shortage of good quality planners. There are some fantastic planning professionals out there, genuinely, and I'm talking in the councils and also in the private sector. But there's a shortage, massive shortage of,
What
of,
defines
of
a good
planning
one?
expertise. Sorry?
What defines a good planner?
I'd say a planner that's got a real commercial nose and understanding for delivery, because planning consultants that are academic are good, but you need planning consultants that are academic and commercially aware, because we can go and get your planning permission, but you actually need to go and deliver it and actually have an understanding of how this plays into the business. And you don't necessarily get taught that respectfully in the council if you're an officer. And again, I was an officer once. But I think in terms of growing the business, I mean, yeah, there's some big firms out there that have regional offices, multiple offices of 20 staff plus that are dealing with the big PLCs. And then you have a fair few sort of one-man bands that are incredibly busy picking up the smaller bits and pieces. And that's not necessarily, in my view, reflective of what I want to do with my business. I want to be that middle operator for the SMEs that are operating arguably in that middle market. I've done 720 homes and a school and a multi-use games area with retail, but we're also still doing, extensions and small conversions and bits and pieces like that. It's that middle ground, that sort of 0 to 100 unit sweet spot for me, that is where we would want to be. And to do that, we want to have a team of, you know, 12, 15 across a couple of locations that are able to offer that service for that part of the market. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And again, you don't want to catch a cold. We spoke earlier about, the architectural firm that went under just purely because of the lack of work. But there's respectfully, there's loads of architects. There's not many planning consultancy outfits that are offering that middle ground range. And we're busy. We're doing work, with the NHS. We're doing work with some pretty impressive house builders and developers and SMEs, and that for me is exciting. And I got asked the other week, is work fun? And for me, I'm very fortunate it is, but I know that there's a lot of developers that are not having fun under this current regime. So, yeah, always happy to help.
So would you say a business constraint for you is sheer talent, just finding the right talent that's
Talent.
ideally got on a public sector experience and learn how the council view things to then be able to consult?
It's that blend of the two. Because you're going to come to me and go, what are we doing with this site? I want to know how much it's going to be, time, and how much it's going to cost, and what our strategy is. It's all about strategy, because you can write the best planning statement in the world and you absolutely need that because you might have to explain it to an inspector. But if you can't articulate that within the council and actually exercise what you've produced academically, then you're going to come unstuck. And that's the difference, I'd say. And having the people that are good at communicating that message to get approval for you, to get a start on site and to actually do business, that is where the art is. That's what you don't get taught.
Where is, just on the talent piece, where is it going? Because there's 1,300 graduates that study town planning at university every year, but I feel like they're not infiltrating into the industry to work. Like if you look at so architects for an example, 7 years to graduate to design a building is unearthly, and it's an overpopulated industry. And then we've got town planning, which will be 3 years, I guess, with them moving into working experience. But we're not, when Labour released that they're upping the planning officers per, oh, he's still there. Yeah, planning
Yeah.
officers per district. Surely we can bring more graduates into learning, working, apprentices into the local councils to improve
Yeah.
it for us and obviously employment for them.
I mean, it's one of those things. What's familiar if you're last year of school and you're looking at your options? What's familiar? Architecture. I can see that. I understand it. What is planning? I mean, there's a lot of geography graduates that step into planning. There's a lot of architects that go and do masters in town planning. I mean, I did 4 years at university, LSBU, and I'd had the experience behind me in order to get my chartership with the RTPI. If you're going straight from school to college to uni, you need to do you can do a fast track 3 years undergrad, and then you need to do a year or 18 months, I think, for your masters. So it's still a good 4 years if you're quick to get your full chartership. And councils will back you. If you go to a council and get a job at a council, which is what I did, I literally went to the council and I got my job. I worked in enforcement and did planning. And I said, put me through uni. And they did, because there's grants in place for it. There's government backed incentives to do it. So if you're looking to get into a proper industry, I would look at starting in the council. That's if you want to do planning. Architecture is a different beast, but that's what I would encourage. But to get that through, it needs to be there needs to be enough of a carrot at the end to get you excited about wanting to do it. And the pay difference is miles out.
Yeah, so let's talk about the pay difference. So if you've got 8 years experience in town planning and you either want to work in the council or work in a private company as an employee, what is the spread on that? I roughly
Um,
can have a guess, but
Go
yeah,
on, have a guess.
again,
Have a guess. Go on, Jack.
well, yeah, that's fine
Go on,
with
have a
me.
guess.
Guess.
8 years, 8 years experience. So yeah, I would say in the council you're probably going to be on 36K, and I would say
Mm,
in private you could be on at least 70 grand in the south.
yeah, it's not too far out. I mean, in terms of how they tier it, generally, you have planner, senior planner, principal planner. And a planner is a graduate, very new. Senior has got probably 4 5 years experience. Then principal, you're in committee and hearings. You'd probably say in the south, you're probably looking at about 35, 40, 45 as a clean run of money. Um, and I'd say on the private sector side, if you are a planning consultant on that similar sort of level, are you a planner, a senior, or a principal level? You're probably looking at more like 40, 50, and 60. and that is the jump. And there's of course incentives if you get an approval through. And to be fair, you could, if you're experienced with 8 years and you are a one person outfit, you could easily do 100 grand through your own private books, or limited company, um, quite comfortably, I would say. But certainly in East Anglia, you could easily do 100 grand and work 3.5, 4 days a week.
It's worth noting as well, though, isn't it, that I know Stockton council around here have had to do this because of a lack of resource in their direct employment of planners, and they've lent on the private sector to help get through quite a few cases. Do you think that's something that's going to keep extrapolating, where councils are leaning on the private sector, which I think is only a good thing, but lean on the private sector
Mm.
to actually help resource planning?
Um, yes and no. I mean, we've had several applications this year that have been determined by consultant planners who have come in. They've been given a batch of 50 applications to go and determine. We're miles behind, help us out. They come in for 6 months and they go. That is, it can be quite helpful. I'd rather that than still wait for a determination.
Mm.
But I think there's that whole kind of privatization of the planning department is still something that's being spoke about. I mean, dare I say it, like you've got approved inspectors for building regs, are we going to see approved planning consultants for for planning applications if they're a certain size, they're an extension or it's PD or something like that? I mean, that's been spoken about for a lot of years.
That's got to move into AI for simple stuff, though, hasn't it?
I've
Yeah.
got to shoot. Sorry, gents.
Hello,
But
Dee.
Jack, great to see you, and great to meet you. And when we cross over the bridge, we will be hitting you up. So have a good day. Have a good day, guys. See you soon.
Safe from
Bye.
date.
Cheers, Dorian.
And just speaking to the business point as well, obviously you'll have direct revenue from fees and being a planning consultant and being instructed on sites and things like that. But you also have dipped I think more than dipped your toe now into the developer hat side of things, where you're doing like strategic planning gains and things like that, securing positions on site, selling them on, and potentially taking on the full dev delivery as well, which is a great way to leverage your skill set. Jack talks about this a lot. What's your skill set? How do you leverage skill sets so that you're not stepping into new territories and wasting years learning new things? Obviously, delivery side, I'm sure, will be a more of a learning curve for you. But you're
Mm.
actually leveraging your skill set to realize greater sums of revenue, diversified from just the fee earning activities. How's that impacted what you're doing? Is that something typical that you see most consultants do? What do you
Uh,
think?
no, I don't see many consultants do it. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've made millions for some developers and farmers, landowners, just getting them permission on a scrub piece of land. And it clicked with me a fair few years ago. Oh, I need to learn how to do this myself because I've got a trading business. It's making money, but then you need an investment vehicle, a wealth creation vehicle, and that's where I kind of stepped to on that. So a few buy to lets and HMOs and stuff like that. Those would be kept, but yeah, I have secured sites and done them up, got the planning, and sold them on. And the ones for me that have been good, i.e., the profit on cost here is so good, I can't ignore it. I've moved on and got a contractor in place, and developed those and got those away. But I won't do it in every instance. But in terms of that side of things, I mean, I'm in the same boat as anybody else in terms of build cost. Is it viable? And
Well,
that for me has been something that I've learned enormously, and it has helped on the planning business, to be honest, because I'm very clear on it. If you're coming to me for planning advice, you're getting my planning advice. And those that know me professionally, and I've known for quite a few years, will sometimes say, would you do this yourself? And professionally, I've got a line, and I will have to be I will be careful, and I'll make it clear. I'll go, look, professionally, we can do this. Might not be viable, or I think you could maybe structure the deal in this way to get into the site. And then they'll go away, have a little think, and then they'll come back and we move. But it probably has been more of an advantage than a hindrance, I'd say.
Well, I think the interesting thing about your business model, and speaking of blending verticals and things that can complement each other, the fee earning activities of being a planning consultant is like a lead generation for your ultimate buyer for sites that you may want to exit that you've carried through planning yourself. So you're kind of complementing two strategies where it's like, okay, I found some really good sites of the 10 that you do internally. You might go, all right, 2 of them I'll kill off because they're just not worth going anywhere. I'll take the loss on those, on my time spent on those. Of the 8 I've got left, 2 of which are really good, I'm going to take them through delivery. 6 of which I've got a perfect discography of potential buyers who I work with on a daily basis,
Yeah.
contractors, developers, investors. Guys, do you want to buy any of these? And you flip them on for the planning game, right?
It's literally what we do. And the confidence being, you know, in the right tone, the confidence that buyers get from buying the sites that we secure permission on is that it's been secured by a planning consultant. So I'm not going to sell a site that isn't deliverable in a planning sense, because that would be very poor business on the planning side. So
Sure,
you're
yeah.
buying a site that you can move on because I've got permission on my own site professionally, and it's always it's the standout kind of reason when I go and speak with someone about a site. Look, I'm a planning consultant. If I can't get permission on my own site, that wouldn't be good business. So you need to do business with me, and this is what we typically say. And you know, it's going well, and we just need to make sure that we're going at the right pace.
It's a tough business to be in, because most of planning consultancy is being paid for your time, working on something, and they're obviously, as you're growing your business, there becomes a tipping balance with also skill. It's like the old adage of there's like a famous like scenario where Pablo Picasso signed someone's napkin in a restaurant and he pitched to charge like 20 grand for it, and the person said that only took you 2 seconds, and he said, no, it took me my lifetime, because the value is in him and what he's generated. So obviously, as you're growing a being paid for your time business, as reputation and success rates build, you could charge more, and that's, longevity supports you in this industry. But it's super tough to like a law firm, to grow a business, but being paid on time. And as you say, success rate will build you into those, because as you're
Mm.
doing more applications and being paid for your time, the stuff you do privately is a multiplier. You might get planning and it'll be worth 3 times what you bought it for, but the
Mm.
time piece is currently your growth scale model in your trading business.
And the interesting thing on that is that we still have to pay for the ecology, the highways, the architectural work. Like, we're just saving a bit of money on the planning. It's all the report. I mean, we still have to pay the planning fee. Like, we're not exempt from it.